Alrighty then, folks. So I figured that I might as well start, if I'm going to start with a decent instruction video. Not because I don't care about issues like hitting an iron or hitting a driver or chipping or putting or whatever. I do care. I mean, they're important things to know, but I'd also like to give some context. And I think it's important to start with when you're learning, learning how to play, is to understand why various things are important. I mean, if we talk about basic algebra, basic mathematics, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, you know, that kind of thing. Why is it important to know, these things? Why is it when we play golf that it's important to be able to hit shots that are more or less in target and what those targets should be? I think it's important to understand the scope that you really need to kind of get to in order to play most courses decently. And so I'm going to start with one of the courses that I reviewed lately called Wolf's Creek in Mesquite, Nevada. This is probably, I think it's a decent course because it's an exceptionally challenging course, although not very difficult. And I will say this again, no course is really difficult if you play it like you have a brain, okay? If you play it sensibly, it doesn't really matter how good your skills are, how bad. You play to the course, you understand your own game, you understand your own limitations, your capabilities. You can pretty much play any course there is out there. And so let's look at a course that has some points that are really challenging points, but also some simplifications compared to a lot of other courses out there. This course is a slope 140 course from the tees that I played, which are the blue tees there, and with a course rating of about 75 and a total yardage of 5,800 yards. So that what that means essentially is it's on the short side, and it is still tough to play. It would be 5 strokes over par for a scratch golfer over the length of the course. So it's not an easy course to play, but at the same time, it's not that hard. And it also has, because it's a desert course and it has a lot of verticality, you don't need to be able to hit really long distances. You just need to be able to place your shots fairly well. And that's going to become really evident here, I think, as we go along. So as I'm right now in the process of working up the actual video part here, we'll start off. So this is the clubhouse for Wolf's Creek. This is the front left side of the clubhouse facing the clubhouse from the parking lot. The tee box for the first tee is between this first and second tree here, and it's back behind the clubhouse. So that's fairly common on a lot of courses. You'll find that the first tee and maybe the 10th tee are somewhere behind the clubhouse. So let me switch to the back view of that. And the relative importance of this is that you have the back of the clubhouse up here on the right. And this is also an area where you have the carts being collected and washed just as they are being dispatched for new players coming out. I'm playing the blue tees, which are the last tees, the challenger tees, I guess they call it, and then they have the championship tees, which are going to be just behind to the left here. I'm on the right front of the tee box looking down the fairway. So that means essentially that there's a lot of noise going on up here. There's the clubhouse up here to the right on the top level here. You're looking at the back deck of a restaurant in the clubhouse. So that means in this case there was actually, because I was among the last people to tee off that day, there were 4 or 5 people up there working there that are running around, busting the carts and stuff like that. So it's a lot of noise there, and that's one of the things you have to learn to deal with when you are teeing off behind a clubhouse or in a public area, as opposed to some isolated area of the course. There's a lot of noise and distraction where people are not standing there watching you tee off. They're running around doing whatever they're going to do. So you have to learn how to play, without worrying too much about the fact that there are people being rude while you're trying to play the course. Okay. So this look here from the top right, as you can see here, there's this grassy area over here next to the sand trap on the side of the hill, and there's a sand trap down on the bottom left of the fairway beyond where the cart path goes to the left, and you see the desert behind there. And you basically have a lane of a cart path going in a slight crescent to the left, away from the tee box, which is farther over here to the left off the screen. And it's going to curve back around to the left and go back up the hill into this canyon, I guess you call it, where you have sand traps all on the left, sand traps on the right, there's sand traps on the front right and front left of the green, and then sand traps coming down the car path here on the right side, and sand traps there where this kind of gray patch is, which is there because that's a high traffic area. And then, so your issue is, certainly at least once you should look at the course map and get a good idea of what the course looks like. And also you should get the yardage. So let's pull up the yardage also if we have it here somewhere. And 504 from the blue tees. Okay, so let's talk about this, what we're going to do here in this first hole. So this is a 500-yard hole, essentially. Now, since it's a par 5, this means you always have 2 putts normally. So we'll have what we call a green in regulation, and then we'll have 2 putts. Normally 2 putts on every hole. And then, so 5 minus 2 leaves 3 for the greens in regulation, meaning you want to get on the green in 3. And then 2 putt in for par. So it's a 500-yard hole, and the first thing that I always try to do is divide that by the green in regulation count, which in this case is 3. So 500 divided by 3 is going to be, let's see, 150 times 3 is 450. So you divide that extra 50 by 3, which works out to be, what does that work out to be? 15 yards roughly. So it's going to be about 165 if I work out the old calculator here. 507 divided by 3 is 170 estimated, basically. Okay, so this is when you need to think and do a little math, right? So 3 shots from the tees, 507, 170, okay? And then the next thing that you're going to need to have in your bag of tricks, your bag of skills, I should say, is a spreadsheet in your mind, which is going to tell you roughly what you hit per club. Okay? So here you want to basically, this is your little yardage book that you're going to work out, where you're going to work out over time, and you're going to work out over practice, your range time, your course time. Every time that you pick up a club, you're going to work this out. And there's 3 ways that you can do it. You can go yardage nominal, yardage maximal. This is going to be yardage min. Now, this is how this works, okay? This is what you want to make now is a list for each club of how far you can hit the ball along a shot line reasonably accurately and reasonably consistently. And for different types of shots, you're going to get different numbers. What I would call is a walk-up, normal swing, 75% maybe. I would say I'm just going to throw these in for my 2 because I rarely play it anymore. But I don't have a sandwich, so I don't worry about that right now. Let's see, pitching wedge, I find this to be something I can hit roughly consistently about 80 yards, maybe 75. So the middle column is a column that you're going to be conservative, but on the longer end of the shot. And I don't really like hitting my 60 more than 30 yards. Okay, like if you had to bet your life or bet $100 on making that shot, what would be the maximum distance? This would be the max is a different issue. The middle column is what you would put in if you had to bet on it. Like if you had a target, like a green that you were trying to hit, and you said, I'm going to bet that I hit it this distance and make that shot. Your nominal distance is going to be that distance. So I would say in here, say 230. It's not, obviously it's driven by a lot of different things. What is the real risk? What is the real green? What is the odds that you're going to have to actually do this? And it's rare, honestly, for the longer clubs. And really, greens, I'm going to try to go into a green maybe with a 4 or 5 once in a round, and a 6 two or three times around. 8, 9 pitch range. That's going to be the bulk of my shots onto the green. Okay. 3 with 215, say. Okay. I can hit it 275 max. This is I absolutely just lay it out there, and how far is it going to go? Accurate. And the reason that you have a different column here is because this is the number you want to use when you're trying to figure out what's the absolute farthest I'm going to hit it, so that I can undercut a hazard with that club. Okay. If I'm hitting to a green or hitting into the green and there's woods or waste or something back there, I would say, what's the farthest I need to be from that waste to know I can't reach it with my 3-wood or 2-iron or whatever. Okay. So the other half of the case is, what if you're looking at a hazard? Now the hazard is, say, 200 yards, but say it's 220 to cross the hazard. Okay. So you want to make sure that your nominal distance is going to be shorter than the total distance, including the hazard. On the other hand, if you don't want to get into the hazard, you'd want to play your max distance, which is so that you can lay up in front of that hazard confidently. And that's what the carry and the rollout and everything. And you don't want that ball to go into a 200-yard hazard. It's 200 yards away. You want to pick a club that's going to have a max yardage of less than 200 yards. Okay. And then the minimum, which is more like a pooch shot or rescue shot, or something where you're hitting out of trees, hitting out of the woods, hitting out of waste, that kind of thing. And you'd want to know roughly the minimum that you're going to hit that club. I would say controllably, reliably, like 3, it's a little bit more of a challenge because as the ball gets up in the air, you run the risk of having the ball hit trees, or not come up cleanly and get stuck in whatever you're trying to hit out of. Roughly cut this in half, the nominal distance in half. Really, really have to be careful with these higher irons, because the ball will get up early on you and either hit into something you're trying to play under, or you don't quite get it up in the air enough because it's still not enough loft. And so you can run into a lot of trouble here. So let's just, this you definitely have to be careful, because then you have to make sure you get a clean hit, and these can really bite you if you're trying not to hit them far. So these are 3 different yardages, and they're 3 different yardages for good reasons. But over your course of playing, you're going to modify that over time. Okay, so in this case, we have the yardages. All right, so getting back to where we were, we now have our club list, and we're looking at our club list now, and we're going to say, okay, fine. Now, so 175 roughly per shot. And so I like to think that you have to be careful at the least to think about this every time, okay? And the question is, what club am I going to hit off the tee? You should always at least ask that question once. What club should I hit off the tee? And so the important thing is to remember that the farther you hit or the harder you hit, the farther you try to hit or the harder you try to hit, the more likely you are going to put the ball in some place you don't want it to be. Okay, so this is where watching too much golf on TV or watching other people play golf can be very dangerous. Okay, If we look back at the overhead map, okay, we can see that there are certain places we do not. So I don't know if it matters here, but we'll start with the overhead map right after the club distance. So T box bottom left corner, behind that part of the cart path that goes horizontally. And then the green is up here at the very top. That's 507. Divide that by 3, roughly 170. So what you want to do is just put 2 lines in there across that fairway and say that's where the fairway starts is about 170, and where that diagonal part of the cart path goes is another 170, and then you'd have the green 170 from there. So now it all becomes a question of what do you feel comfortable hitting, honestly. Most people would immediately pull out a driver and then struggle to get the ball in play in the fairway. Then, since half of that is going to be 250, okay, that center fairway next to the 1 is 250, and half of that again is 125. So, the question is, can you get it onto the fairway and keep it somewhere in play to the right of the cart path and to the right of that break where that, to the left of that break where the sand trap on the right here, just short of the lake between number 1 and number 9 are. So what's happening over here, the dark green is rough, and then you've got a patch of lighter green, which is short rough over here, and then a ridge that runs down from the very bottom of that lake and runs left and then back to this patch, to the tip of the patch here. So what you will see if you look at this on the course, and I do have a picture of this somewhere, what you'll see is a very deep depression, sort of what we call a swale or a wash here, down off the tip, where the ball can go down over there and be down about 25-30 feet below the fairway. You can't quite see that from the tee box. It's behind the bush to the left. Look at that again. Okay, so the other problem is hitting to the left. Hitting to the left of the fairway, you run into this part here where the desert comes up behind these trees, and that could be a problem. The trees are there undoubtedly to stop balls from going out in the desert, just because they're a little bit long and left. But you don't want to be over there in the left, playing out of those trees off the desert or something back in the fairway. So the question is, can you get the ball in play on that fairway with your driver? And let's go back and look at this top view again. Important to realize that that's going to be close to 250, that lake on that sand trap next to the number 1. This one's going to be about 200, which is just past the edge of the fairway. So depending on how much control you have over your driver, your 200 mark here, your 250 mark here, 200 is not out past the extent of this bushy stuff over here on the right, and 250 is. So you really ideally want to be somewhere around the 250 mark, if not 275, which is going to put you on the right sand trap, and then 280 or so, which is going to put you into that area around the cross path, cart path, and then to maybe 300, which would put you just over it. And there's also a horizontal waist area there that you have to watch out for going across the fairway at that point. And it also puts the lake into play going across that point. And that's fine. The problem is that 300 into that lake is still a 2-shot penalty, or actually maybe 1 shot, because it's going to be a hazard, depending upon whether you play it as a hazard or a lost ball. So you really want to be careful and hit that somewhere between about 275 and 200. And I would say you just really want, for this hole, you really just want to get past that first sand trap, or in between the sand trap and that waist. When I hit over here, tucked a little bit to the right. I hit a cut shot down this left side, and it came back over to the right a little bit and stopped right about where that one was. So then looking at this mess, and there's a ground under repair and all that stuff over here on top of this diagonal slash of the cart path, I just wanted to get over here somewhere between this bend coming from the left and the sand trap on the right. And that would put me about 120 to the green. So my whole concentration here was pull out a 6-iron or a 5-iron, hit it about 3/4, maybe half to 3/4, and have it go over into that flat spot right there in front of these two sand traps, which I was able to do. And then I pitched up with an 8-iron up to this green. And this is a tricky green. It's very long green, very narrow green. And there's 2 layers here where you go up to the top layer of the green. I have to get way back up here to show this, because you can't really see that from in front of the green because it's an upsloping green. So all I really wanted to do was pitch it up on the green and let it run out, hopefully not run off the back. Got that, was able to do that, and I had the ball approximately on the lower lip there that you see. Look at it again. And then I had a 2-putt from the lower lip to the pin on the upper lip. But this is why I try to, when I take my shots of a hole, I always try to include at least one shot of the green, so you can get an idea of what the lie is around the green, as well as the segmentation, whether it's 1 layer, 2 layer, whether it's sloping up or down, and also whether the green is elevated around the sides, above the sides, which it is significant difference if you have elevation, multiple layers, sloping, and then a lot of waste around the back of the green or the sides. And then in this case there wasn't much waste, but there was, the short rough, and then the rocks and stuff behind the green. And I was able to get out of this, putting back to the first level or up to the top level, forget which one it was, and then able to make my second putt, because my first putt was close to the pin. Okay, so this is a great, I think, example hole. Shows you a lot of the different types of peril that you can run into on a relatively simple hole, but you still have to play it smart and play it in control. It's the first hole. It's your first hole out. You're really going to be a little tight. The odds that you're going to hit great shots, not very good. What you don't want to do on this hole is walk out here, try to hit a really great drive off the first hole, and try to hit a really great second shot off the first tee shot, and put it way back up there in the woods where these trees are in the back, or off to the side, on the cliffs. They're about 4 or 5 feet off to the left, or off to the right, which is where the lake is, and then the fairway for the number 9 hole. You don't want to get too ambitious. You just want to keep that down, running up the hill, and get up there and make a decent chip and get on and get out. And I was able to do that without very much problem at all, and par the hole pretty easily. And I think that is the most you can really ask for in the first hole, is to come off with a par. I was pretty happy with that. So what I want to say about that is what you want to do when you're out there practicing on your greens. I mean, your driving ranges, and practicing your chip shots and practicing your pitch shots and your irons and your drives, is you want to be able to just get that in play. It doesn't matter if you go into the traps, honestly. That's almost a bonus, really, because it just adds more territory for you to hit into. But you don't want to be up in the light colored rock areas, or off to the right, or under a tree. That, I would say, the sand traps are not going to bother you that much once you learn how to play out of sand. Okay, what does bother you is having to drop off the rocks or play out of an adjacent fairway back to this one, which is going to add 50 to 100 yards to your shot, and play way up in the back of the green which is just going to add 2 strokes, to your shot, to your total, and just not throw away shots with what I would call stupid shots, bad shots, shots put you in a bad position, and just add silly strokes to your score. The more you stay in the shorter green stuff, the better you're going to be. It just is really not worth the risk of going way off the course, trying to hit shots a long distance. And so in the long run, if you go back to this shot distance chart, and you won't want to believe this, you won't want to, follow this theory. It's a counterintuitive, counter ego theory. Playing your chart wisely is going to save you a lot of strokes. If you can hit nominal shots, that's great. If you don't hit beyond your maximum, that's even better. If you can hit at least your minimum with a club, that's a trifecta. You will be able to hit the ball under control on almost all your shots. You will save yourself the aggravation and frustration and extra strokes of hitting shorter than your minimum, longer than your maximum, and not hitting your nominals. And you will basically save yourself from wasting shots just by misplacing the ball, not by trying to hit fantastic distances. You're not going to go out there and say, oh, I can hit a 7-iron 200 yards, I can hit a 500, 250. I'm sure there are people out there who can play, those distances, but can you play them under control? Because if you don't play them under control, you're just adding strokes to your round, to your holes, to your score, and you're not saving yourself strokes. You're not going to be on the green in 2 on a 500-yard par 3, unless you can go 250, 250, or 275, 235, or 300, 200. And maybe you can, but again, the question is, can you do that without adding strokes? That's the other half of the distance chart. Can you hit those shots without adding strokes? Because if you can't, you might as well just take your 2 strokes and play like you have sense. So that's the goal that you want to try to establish as you practice on the range, as you play courses for real, is to update this chart in your head so you can pick a smart choice of club, a smart choice of landing area, smart choice of target line, and a smart choice of shot. That's all it takes, really. If you can do this intelligently and well, you will become a very decent golfer in a short amount of time. If you forget about all this stuff and you try to, forge your way through, you will struggle for years and still not become a decent golfer. You'll still be just a 100, 120 stroke per round player after 10 to 15 years of playing. And I know that because that's what I was. I know exactly why I did it that way.